Whatever you're into when it comes to sports, you can find it right here. Now, play my intro. Now it's time for the Robb Johnson Sports Show, presented by Robb Johnson Media and the Legacy Maker Sports Network.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Robb Johnson Sports Show, presented by the Legacy Maker Sports Network and the Robb Johnson Media. Today, we're just quite simply here. We're going to be talking about the NFC and AFC Championship game. Not really too much to get into today. Just talking about the games, talking about different aspects of the games here on episode 89 of the Robb Johnson Sports Show. You pretty much know what the stakes are going into these games, going into the fact that when you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, you look at the Washington Commanders, we expected the Eagles to be here. We expected the Eagles to be that team that had the talent to get here. Now, when you look at Washington, I would say mid-year. About mid-year, you started to see Washington that they were a legit contender to get to the NFC Championship game and possibly the Super Bowl. I started saying this because I started seeing traits. And when you start to see traits in teams, you start to see the fundamentals. You start to see teams that have an identity. And the identity for the Philadelphia Eagles was running the football. Their identity not only was running the football, but it was playing opportunistic defense. There's an Eagles team early in the season who lost to Atlanta Falcons. This is a team in the Philadelphia Eagles who understood what they need to do on the defensive side of the ball, along with running the ball with Saquon Barkley. Jalen Hurts has been opportunistic all year. And I think the dangerous thing about that, if you're an NFC team like the Commanders in today's NFC Championship game, or if you're a team that will play the Eagles if they advance to a Super Bowl, when does Jalen Hurts finally get loose? When does Jalen Hurts finally bring that aspect that we saw when he played against Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl? So that element of Jalen Hurts is still there, folks. We just haven't seen it. You have to ask yourself, is it the Eagles playing safe ball? Are the Eagles trying to preserve something? I think that when you look at, again, Saquon Barkley and everything that he has done, now that you look at it from this perspective in the title games of the AFC and NFC, you have to say that Saquon Barkley is definitely an MVP candidate, but not just an MVP candidate. He should be the MVP of the league because, honestly, without Saquon Barkley, where would the Philadelphia Eagles be? Without Saquon Barkley, would this Eagles team even be in the NFC Championship Championship game? Now, you look at Washington, when we talk about certain things, we talk about identities. Their identity is simply playing team football, playing within themselves. They're an opportunistic defense. They're not going to shut anybody down. They're not going to stop anybody. But what they do is they play opportunistic. If you look at this Commanders team, they kind of remind you of that Saints team in 2009 a little bit. Well, of course, you can't compare Drew Brees to Jaden Daniels just yet. Two different players, even though Drew Brees was a little athletic. But you look at that Saints team, they were very opportunistic. And you look at, even though like today they lose Deron Payne, I believe it's a leg injury for the Commanders. This game is going to come down to the identities. Can the Eagles run the football? And can the Washington Commanders play opportunistic defense? You're not going to ask Jaden Daniels to do everything in this game. Now, will he have to put the cape on? Maybe. Will he have to make a few sacrifices, a few runs? Maybe. But one thing the Commanders can't do is they can't let this game get away from them early. These teams split during the season 1-1. The last time they played, Jalen Hurts went out with an injury, as we all know. Not only did Jalen Hurts go out with an injury, but the Philadelphia Eagles were a dropped Devontae Smith pass away from winning that football game. So really, you could say in the 2 games during the regular season that the Eagles were the better team. But you can't deny the Commanders going on the road. They went on the road and they beat a really good Tampa Bay team, and they beat the number 1 seed in the Detroit Lions. We cannot let that slip through our fingers. We can't let that just be a thing. It happened. They went on the road and beat Detroit. No matter how you feel about Matthew Stafford, no matter how you feel about the injuries, they went on the road and beat the Detroit Lions. So this is their first opportunity at a championship, at an NFC championship and a Super Bowl possibly since 1991. Who am I going to pick in this game? It's hard because I want to go Commanders. I want to go Eagles. I'm split in the middle. It's 50-50. But I have to go with the team I feel like it's been most impressive. Now, if Jalen Hurts gets off today and he starts slinging the ball around the field and, can make timely passes, can get A.J. Brown involved and can get those major weapons involved, there's a good possibility that this Eagles team could win by 10 to 14 points. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think, again, the Commanders are going to play opportunistic football. I think that this is going to be one of those classic NFC East games. If you are the Washington Commanders, you have to make sure, you've got to make sure that you get the tight ends involved. The tight ends, I feel like, are going to be very key for the Washington Commanders today. I believe that they're going to try to take Terry McLaurin out of this game. The tight ends and the other receivers are going to have to beat the Philadelphia Eagles today. The running backs are going to be extremely huge, not just in passing, but in pass protection. You lose one of your signature offensive linemen last week. If you're the Commanders, how are you going to contain that middle? How are you going to contain that speed? The Eagles have a lot of speed on their defensive line. They got a lot of power. They got a lot of guys who come with a lot of experience, championship pedigree, that those Georgia picks are starting to finally come into play for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, we know Nakobe Dean got hurt last week, and he's probably out for the rest of the playoffs. But when you got these other guys, when you have these other dudes who are absolute grown men when it comes to playing football, the Philadelphia Eagles have a lot of speed on their team. And when you factor in the fact that they drafted the 2 rookies this past year out of Toledo, out of Iowa, the Eagles have a lot of speed on their team. They have a lot of power up front. And you have to literally beat them. You have to beat them. You can't finesse your way when you play the Philadelphia Eagles. It's not going to be a finesse game. And one thing about the Commanders I can give them credit for, they like to play tough football. Brian Robinson is not going to run from a fight. So, my final prediction, I'm going to give it to the Commanders 33-30 in a shootout. I think that Jaden Daniels passes for over 300. I think that Jalen Hurts passes for about 250. I think Saquon goes for about a good $150 to 200. And I think this is a close game. But as much as I want to pick the Philadelphia Eagles, I'm going to have to pick the Washington Commanders to go on and play in Super Bowl 59. Now, going to the AFC. The Kansas City Chiefs all time are 4-2 against the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs. 1993, it was Buffalo who beat the Kansas City Chiefs 30-13 to advance to the Super Bowl. where they got beat by the Dallas Cowboys. And then you got the Buffalo Bills, who lost to the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game a few years back. This game is going to be predicated on one thing, folks, and I know this is going to be simple, and I know that I'm not going to give a long explanation, but I think the NFC game is more complicated. This Kansas City Chiefs game and this Buffalo Bills game comes down to one thing, and it comes down to a T word. That T word, ladies and gentlemen, is turnovers. If you're Josh Allen, you continue to protect the football. You cannot give the ball to the Kansas City Chiefs. You cannot turn the ball over. If you're the Buffalo Bills, you cannot pull a Ravens and get out of your game. Run the football. Run the football, play tough defense, play timely defense. You don't have to dominate the game, but you do need to get some takeaways. You cannot let Kansas City do whatever they want to do. And it's the other problem you have if you're Buffalo. The Kansas City Chiefs are healthier. Hollywood Brown is back. Now, this is going to be some of the better weapons that Patrick Mahomes has had in a few years. I believe that Buffalo, if you look at last week, if you honestly look at last week, Kansas City played around with the Texans. They didn't show much. They didn't do much. They didn't have to, because they're better than the Texans. The Chiefs did not have to do much to beat the Texans, because they knew the Texans were going to beat themselves. Because when you look at the Texans' previous game, the daggone Chargers should have had a 13, 16-point lead, but they're the Chargers. So we know how that goes, especially when it comes to the playoffs, when it comes to the Los Angeles Chargers. They're not a consistent football team. We get that. We understand that. So the Kansas City Chiefs did not have to do anything too special last week to beat the Houston Texans. They're going to show Buffalo everything this week, I believe. And the defense is going to be adjusted. Now, if you're Buffalo, you had to beat the Baltimore Ravens. You had to show everything. You had to empty the tank. So you had to empty the tank against this team. And now, what do you have to really, when you look at it, you had to empty the tank. So what do you have now? What do you have now if you are the Buffalo Bills? You beat the big bad wolf, which was the Baltimore Ravens, who blew you out early in the season. What was it, 35-10? Kansas City didn't show much. Kansas City didn't have to show much. Kansas City was just that. They were just that good that they played around and won a game that they were just better than the other team. And I believe that the defense this week is going to come into play. I believe that the Buffalo Bills will stay in this game early, but I believe that Patrick Mahomes will have a classic Patrick Mahomes game like he used to. His weapons will be more dynamic than they were the last time these teams played, and we will see something in Patrick Mahomes that we haven't seen in a long time. I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs, because when you look at this era of football, the Kansas City Chiefs are just a better football team. And if you're Buffalo, you are cursed. I hate to say it, but if you're the Buffalo Bills, 4 straight Super Bowls lost. What was it, 13 seconds in 2021? They went down the field in 12, 13 seconds, and they won the game in overtime. And one of the classic games, the overtime rules got changed because of you, Buffalo. Cried, you moaned, oh, it wasn't fair. Okay, well, it's fair now. It's fair now. I think that Kansas City's weapons will find the weapons that are finally there, are finally healthy. The 2 running backs are healthy for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I just look at the Chiefs and I just think that they haven't fully shown us anything yet this season. And they're still, 15 and 16-2 now? This is a great football team, folks. Patrick Mahomes, I feel like, has gotten a little tired of people talking about the refs, talking about this isn't the same team, all this other jazz. You know, they say that America wants Buffalo to win. Well, Buffalo has to prove they can beat Kansas City first in the playoffs. Can they beat them in the regular season? Yeah, they can beat them in the regular season, but this is the postseason. Last year, when the chips were down, Buffalo missed that kick to get into the AFC Championship game. This year, they are in the AFC Championship game. They won all those games, but they still have to go to the Kansas City Invitational, which is the Kansas City Chiefs Arrowhead Stadium. So for me, folks, I'm going to pick here the Kansas City Chiefs. So my Super Bowl is the Washington Commanders against the Kansas City Chiefs. I have the Kansas City Chiefs winning the Super Bowl by a score of 33-21, defeating the Washington Commanders and winning another Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes' fourth championship at the age of 28 years old. So again, I have the Commanders winning today. I have them winning today. I have the Kansas City Chiefs winning today. And I have my Super Bowl. I have the Commanders against the Chiefs. And I have the Chiefs winning that Super Bowl 33-21. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been the Rob Johnson Sports Show, episode 89. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure you check me out tomorrow. I will be giving you guys another full dose of football. We'll preview the Super Bowl. We'll talk about the games today. And we'll talk about some other topics as well. Thanks for watching episode 89 of Rob Johnson Sports Show. You all have a great day.